This dude's family was in attendance, and he was like, let me run the opposite way, pick up a live ball, trip over Josh Simmons, then throw the football to the other team while it's live. Look, what a day Pacheco had out there. This is what I'm afraid of, Steve. Tell me I'm crazy.
You're crazy.
I'm afraid that Noah Williams is going to get 19 snaps this week and maybe next week 20, and we fall in love with him. And then there's a certain Najee Johnson going to come off IR and take off his snaps.
No.
I swear I will lose. Look, hey, look at me. Spags, if you hear me right now, if you watch one thing, Najee Johnson does not get Noah Williams snaps when he comes back.
You're listening to All Chiefed Up, the podcast.
Chiefs Kingdom ACU crew, welcome back to All Chiefed Up. We're back with another podcast for that ass. It is Tuesday, September the 23rd. It's officially fall. It's officially football season, and I'm horned up, baby, and ready to roll. And guess what, Mike? The Chiefs just got their first dub. They're officially in the dub column, ladies and gentlemen, over the Giants, 22-9. How about it?
Round of applause. Round of applause for this team. Let me tell you something. Look, I'm excited about it. A lot of people didn't think it was the nicest game. It wasn't the most pleasingly aesthetic
ugly
game to watch. Yeah, for real. That first half was brutal. And then, of course, you had Butker missing extra points, missing field goals. You had drops. You had Pacheco running crazy routes. He even picked up a live ball and threw it at the Giants. This dude's family was in attendance, and he was like, let me run the opposite way, pick up a live ball, trip over Josh Simmons, then throw the football to the other team while it's live. Look, what a day Pacheco had out there.
It was so bad. It was like the Bad News Bears football version. It was tough to watch. It was very tough to watch. I was glad to see that they got their shit together just a little bit in the second half, enough to come out and get that dub that we so desperately needed. But here we are, man, 1-2, going to face the Ravens this week. So we'll see how it all plays out, man. The Chiefs didn't do themselves any favors early this season, so they have a little bit of a mountain to climb.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those things where it's self-inflicted wounds. Rashee Rice called himself to miss the season, like the first half of it, right? Not half, but pretty close. We've put ourselves in these situations. Injuries has put us in these situations. A lot of people kept asking, where was Jalen Royals the other night? Guys, he was standing on the sidelines, just right there. Andy come out and said, I want to say Monday in his presser, didn't he, Steve? He said something about he was just there for, backup just in case somebody got injured. He didn't even plan on playing the guy.
Yeah, I think the way Andy put it out there was like, this kid hasn't practiced football in 3-4 weeks. He's a rookie. He wasn't going to play, but he was there just in case.
Should they have just thrown him on IR for 4 weeks and let him get healthy? Yeah, like why didn't they do that?
They could have definitely used someone else. But, I mean, honestly, I guess it doesn't really matter either way. I mean, if they would have even took another wide receiver, you probably wouldn't have seen him much. I think we saw Jason Brownlee, who caught the back end of the roster, get like 7 snaps last night. So I don't know if it's a huge deal, but it's definitely something they could have done, because I think it's weird that we're 3 weeks through the season now and he's yet to step on the football field. So for all intents and purposes, they could have done that exactly.
Right. Well, let's go through this game. Let's break this game down really, really good, and then that way we can move on. I think Chiefs Kingdom, I think the ACU crew wants to hear our thoughts across the board on this game. We'll just break it down in depth. Steve, how do you think Patrick Mahomes played the other night? Because we seen him week 1 and week 2. He was putting the team on his back. He was doing what he had to do. He had to get out there and rush. He had to make these Superman type plays. Now, we didn't see anything crazy Superman from Mahomes, but he did have one particular play I can remember where he was all over the field, back and forth, and then he just heaved it down the field for a completion. Or that might have been the one where Hollywood got the penalty. Yeah, but that was a definite penalty. Giants fans can cry all they want. That was a beautiful play by Mahomes. Mahomes played a good game. I don't think he played a great game by any means, but just starting off with Mahomes, what would you grade Mahomes out? I give him a solid, like probably B+, A- for that performance.
I can't go much higher than a B- or C+. I feel like Mahomes left a lot to be desired on the field. In the first half, I thought he kind of looked flustered. I don't know if it was because of the pressure that they were being able to get on him. I don't know if guys just weren't running the right routes. I don't know if he just wasn't feeling good that day. I don't know, but something looked a tick off with him, especially when I saw Travis Kelce standing wide open and him not double pump, but triple pump, and then still throw the ball over his head.
Do you give him a little bit of a pass there, though, considering he was trying to push the ball down the field? And this is what we wanted. It was almost like he was like, look, well, I got the dump down, but let me take another look down the field and see if I can get it. And then he was like, and then he just throws it and he misses it. Some people were giving him a pass for that because he was trying to push the ball.
Well, I'm just going to say that Patrick Mahomes was just as big a part of the problem in the first half as everybody else on the field. No one was executing good. It's just what it was. I mean, if you watch Patrick Mahomes throw the football backwards twice, he literally had to run and make a hero play just to get the ball back. I mean, he wasn't looking great either, but he looked much better coming out in the second half. The offense opened up a little bit. He started taking some shots. He started looking a little more like normal Pat. You know, he got out of the pocket a few times, like you said, made some guys miss, extended some plays, and made positive yardage out of it one way or another. That's the Patrick Mahomes that we need, not first half Pat.
For sure. Going off of Pat, like I think Pat's not the focus. Pat definitely does what he needs to do to make us win. This dude's the greatest to ever play at the position besides Tom Brady, and I mean he's gonna catch him. That's just the way it is. But if you start going off of Pat and you start looking at the two things that influences Pat the most, number one would be play calling. Either it be Andy Reid or Matt Nagy, and we'll talk about that right now. And then we'll get to the offensive line because that's the other big effective thing that could either hinder or help Mahomes.
Right.
So looking at the play calling first and foremost, a lot of people are kind of irritated. They're a little pissed off. They think that Andy Reid's play calling has got stale. He won't commit to a running game. The concepts for the offensive line are stale. The receiver routes and the receiver concepts are stale. He's not letting certain players play the way, such as Jalen Royals or Brashard Smith. Matt Nagy is not keeping people accountable. They're not holding Jawan Taylor accountable the way he needs to. Do you think there really is? Does Chiefs Kingdom have a point? Is there something to do with Nagy and Andy Reid and some kind of staleness in the play calling? Or do you think this is just a phase that we're just going through right now because of all these injuries?
I think it's a combination of the two, right? I don't think Matt Nagy's had the best game plans to begin with, but you also have Big Red, who says he calls all the plays. We know he's a notorious great play caller, according to everyone that ever talks about him. Well, he's letting it get past him, and he's letting this happen onto the field. Like you said, there's just not much accountability. And we are seeing a lot of stale play calling, a lot of confusing play calling, a lot of stuff that doesn't make good sense, you know? Like obvious things that me and you can point out from the couch that just make zero sense. And I think it kind of all plays into, well, we are missing a couple of our guys here. We got to try to switch it up a little bit. Maybe we don't run these packages. We're running this package over here. Maybe that's not what they wanted to do, but they had to because of injuries. I don't know. I think there's a lot of different things that go into it. It's very nuanced, right? It could be a little bit of Matt Nagy. It could be a little bit of Andy Reid. Hell, it could even be Patrick Mahomes a bit, because here's the thing. Patrick Mahomes, you just mentioned it. He's one of the best quarterbacks to ever play football. But one thing that I don't see him do, I see him taking over games and willing his way to victories at times. But I never see him take over the offense and just switch up some plays or switch up some routes or do things that you would see Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or some of those guys do on the regular. I would like to see him get more command of the offense. And you know what? If you're seeing something that's not working, that play call is just not what you want it to be, tweak it. Do what you got to do to make it work. You're the one on the field. You're the one that's seeing what's happening. You're the one that knows how quick you have to throw the ball out. I think there's something to that. So I wouldn't just put it on one person whatsoever, because I think you already mentioned the offensive line. You got guys maybe not running good routes out there. I don't know. There's 9 million things that go into this. But right now, it is a shitstorm, and that offense does not look good.
Right, and I think a lot of it does come back to Andy Reid. He's at the top of the mountain. You know,
Absolutely.
if he's calling the plays, then he's at fault. If he's letting Matt Nagy influence the concepts and the way they're calling the plays, that's also his fault.
Right.
So look, you've got to take care of it. And we know Andy and them work on that first 15. He is notorious for being really good at that first 15, and that first 15's been really bad. So I think there's a lot of times that Mahomes and this team, they struggle in the red zone. We talked with Warren Sharp last year, and it's continuing. The red zone, we're just not scoring. Like, we are doing a lot of stuff, Jawan Taylor, just shooting ourselves in the foot over and over and killing drives. But the Chiefs in the red zone have not been particularly good, and I think it's because Patrick Mahomes is having to overcome not only injuries, not only some shaky offensive line play still, and we'll talk about that in just 1 second, but he's having to overcome these weird play calls from Andy or Nagy or whoever it is. They get too cute in the red zone. They get a little weird. Patrick Mahomes has too much in my opinion, he's got too much on his plate. He's thinking about too much. He's worried about the lines. He's worried about the concept. He's worried about new wide receivers. He's worried about the play call. Like, everything needs to get in sync here and make this thing just a lot more simple for Mahomes. Not saying that he needs it simple, but I feel like the simpler it is for the entire offense and the whole thing to gel, Mahomes now freely plays, right? And we want a Mahomes that's just free to go play backyard football and tear it up.
Absolutely. But you kind of hit the nail on the head. They get in the red zone. They do get even more stale, it seems. But that's weird because you mentioned they get too cute. I would much rather them be getting too cute right now than what they are doing. They're telegraphing run plays. They're not doing anything. They're running bad routes. Like the routes that are even called, like the plays that are called are just, they don't even look like they would ever be productive. Like they look like dead ends. Like there's nothing to these plays. I would much rather Andy dip into his bag of tricks and come up with something creative. But we're just not seeing that at all right now. It's very stale, very predictable, and that makes it very, very hard to be productive in the red zone. When other teams know what you're doing, they can read you like a book, and I just think you have to be a little bit more creative, which is what Andy normally excels at. So hopefully we can see them get back more to that. But Mike, let's go ahead and move over to the offensive line. You wanted to talk about that a little bit. A lot of people say that it's all offensive line. They're just so bad. Pat doesn't have time to do anything. It's terrible, and that's literally the only reason why the Chiefs are ever bad is the offensive line. I personally don't think that's it. I really don't. I think it's part of the problem at times, but I don't think that's the main problem. How did you feel about the offensive line performance in the Giants game?
Right. So week 1, I thought, for example, Josh Simmons done really well for his first week. In week 2, I thought he got a little better. In week 3, I felt like he declined just a little bit for me. I felt like the whole offensive line declined just a little bit in week 3. I think we read a stat where Patrick Mahomes, he was pressured on, what was it, 26% of his...
25% for the third game in a row.
Right. So they've still got to clean that up. And a lot of people are asking, why is Mahomes not trusting this offensive line? They look better. And individually, they don't look bad. There was this graph that got thrown up on X just last night.
Look at this graph.
Right. It says evaluating offensive tackles when they're left on an island. And so it's a chart. And up in the top right is where you want to be. Lane Johnson is obviously a 95% win rate when he is left on an island, right? So it's pretty wild how much he can win one-on-one. Right below him, and actually left on an island even more. So being left on an island, there's no help by a guard, no help by a tight end or a running back. Josh Simmons is actually left on an island more, probably somewhere around the 73% mark, and Lane Johnson's around like 71, 72. Josh Simmons has a 92.5% win rate. That is above Jordan Mailata. And so if you look, it's all Eagles and Josh Simmons at the top right of this graph. And if you just look a little bit further left, you've got Joe Alt, Garrett Bowles, Tyler Moton, Deion Dawkins, and then you'll see somebody named Jawan Taylor up at the top right of the chart, which is just buck wild, dude.
Right.
So this tells me a lot of things. It tells me, number one, that yes, Simmons, even yesterday, if you want to look at PFF scores yesterday, Trey Smith was our highest PFF graded pass blocker at an 80.8. Creed Humphrey was a 61. Horrendous. Josh Simmons, a 47.6. Bad. Jawan Taylor, 35.8. Bad. Kingsley Sumatia, 33.8. And I asked, is anyone still curious as to why Mahomes still doesn't trust this offensive line? Well, look, PFF's not the end-all be-all. And again, if they're left on an island, they're doing well. But we're also not leaving them on an island very, very often. Although 73% is pretty big chunk, but it seems like when they're not doing that and they're all having to help each other and communicate, it's still becoming a big problem for Mahomes, and he's not trusting this offensive line.
Right. And I think they also have some struggles in the run game, which attribute to Isaiah Pacheco not having such great field vision and the run game not being as effective as we'd like it to be. And in turn, causing Andy Reid to call less and less run plays. Now, in this game here in particular, Andy ran the ball over 20 times, and usually that's a winning formula for an Andy Reid football team. We've said this for years. If we get 20-plus carries, no matter how good or bad they are, we will win that football game, and that's exactly what happened here. But, yeah, this offensive line has a lot of growing to do, right? And, I mean, if you just think about it all together, the pass blocking is one thing, the run blocking is another thing, but they have a difficult job. Patrick Mahomes is very difficult to block for. That's always been a topic of conversation. You got to get a feel for him. You got to get a feel for how he likes to roll out of clean pockets. He likes to be on the move. He likes to play that backyard football. Also, a lot of our run game is a lot of zone blocking schemes, a lot of weird little nuances here and there. It's going to take a while for this offensive line to gel, Mike. I've been saying that since the beginning of the season here. This left side over here is completely brand new. You have rookie Josh Simmons, and then you have second-year player Kingsley Suamataia, who's playing the guard position for the first time in his career. So they're learning. They're learning big time. And then over on the right side, you've kind of got the vets. Of course, Creed in the middle, and then you got the vets on the right side. They do well, but I just think that as a whole, it's going to take a little bit. I'm looking for around week 8 to see how good this offensive line could be, because right now I think they're just going to take some lumps here and there. There are going to be mental mistakes. They're going to be just times where they're flat out overpowered. But once we get to week 8, we can kind of see they have their footing. They know what they're doing. Is it getting better? That's where we can really start to evaluate the offensive line, I believe.
Yeah, I think Kingsley Suamataia is doing well. He's progressing about as well as we thought he would. This is, again, only his 3rd game. He'll be going into week 4, his 4th game. But I feel like Kingsley is what's causing Creed Humphrey to pull his numbers down right now. I believe he is taking it upon himself to help Kingsley double team that side, pay attention to that side. Like you said, the right side's vets. Trey Smith, he was the highest run blocker and pass blocker even. Right. And usually Creed's right there with him, but Creed's kind of being pulled down a little bit. And I'm not blaming Kingsley and saying Kingsley sucks or whatever else. Is that just
speculation, or have you actually watched the tape and seen that?
Well, you can see it. I had a talk with Mitchell Schwartz about Kingsley missing a block in the preseason, and it got pulled at, it made it look like Creed did something wrong. So there is something to that. And then again, Creed on the other side is dealing with a rookie. And so there's a rookie, there's a noob that's basically a rookie, and then Creed. And I feel like Creed's putting it on himself to help that left side of the line, and they're telling the vets on the right side, you guys get it together. So, look, I don't know how much that is, but like you said, I do think here in the next few weeks, that should start to tighten up, and you'll see Creed's level of play get back to where we normal. Like Creed to be. And so you mentioned the run game, and we'll talk about the running backs, but this offensive line, they did a little bit better versus the Giants to open up run blocking holes, if you will, in some of those zone concepts. It's tough. It really is tough. And so these guys have to make these pull blocks. They've got to communicate really well. And that's tough on the younger guys. And that makes it tough on Creed in the middle, because it's almost like Creed's got to baby step them through on every single play. And so it's causing the running backs to even have some problems. I think it's causing Andy to not want to call certain plays. But let's talk about the running backs in general. We thought Brashard Smith needed to get more carries, and he got on the field, I want to say 5 times. He had 2 or 3 carries. It wasn't nothing crazy, but we did see progression there. So far, they've not even called Elijah Mitchell up. I don't know why we wanted to go out and waste time on him. Apparently, if he can't get on the field with this running back class or just the room in general, I don't know if he's ever getting on the field. But Kareem Hunt looked okay. Pacheco looked okay at times, but in the pass game, Pacheco looked absolutely atrocious. Is it time we kind of get rid of a lot of Pacheco stuff, give more stuff to Kareem Hunt, more stuff to Brashard Smith, and start looking at life after Pacheco?
Absolutely. I think you have to look at life after Pacheco for a couple of reasons. I think that Isaiah Pacheco has kind of outplayed where he was drafted, right? He was a 7th-round draft pick. He has definitely outplayed that. He's 2-time Super Bowl champion. He's pretty solid. He was right under 1,000 yards a couple of seasons ago, and then last year, of course, he dealt with the injury, but I think Isaiah Pacheco comes with his limitations, right? We always naturally want to go to the field vision because you see so many plays where he's just running into the backs of his blockers and just missing some wide open running lanes. So that's really the first thing that comes to mind. But then we've always kind of wondered, why can't they use him in the passing game more? I feel like Pacheco could be a guy that they could utilize in the pass game. I think you're starting to see why they don't. He's not a great route runner, and he just does some really boneheaded things. He looked lost last night in that game a couple of times. Those plays where Patrick Mahomes was throwing the ball backwards, keep in mind, Isaiah Pacheco is supposed to swing out and be a dump down option right there. That's his job, is to be that dump down option. If there's too much pressure, I'm giving you the ball. If you go back and watch the second one in particular, he's literally turning to his left, behind the quarterback, away from the quarterback, towards their own end zone. That is the most asinine thing I've ever seen in my life. Like
that actually may be the play I was talking about earlier where he actually ran smack into Josh Simmons and caused Josh Simmons got to get to
brother.
Mahomes.
He looked absolutely lost out there. And I think that's a big reason why they have to move on from Pacheco, because you're 4 years into your career at this point. That kind of stuff should not be happening. That was wild to see. It really was. And his strengths, I would really like them to play to his strengths more. Mike, you've talked about how you would like to see them, maybe do some halfback tosses, get him out to the edge. You saw him last night run a little misdirection play that got him out to the edge. It was a great play. It's probably the best run that you saw all night, to be quite honest about it. That's what he's good at. But what they use him for, he's not that great at. And then obviously you can't put him out there in the passing game too much. He's not going to help you a whole lot. So there's just some limitations I think to deal with there. And I think they're going to have to move on from him eventually. So I'm with you. Go ahead and give Kareem Hunt a little bit more of this and maybe get Rashard Smith in there and try to see if we're going to be able to get anything out of that kid.
Absolutely. Rashard Smith's got to get more touches. And I would not be opposed to allowing Elijah Mitchell to get a few touches too, to see what you got. And if not, we can move on from him as well and go find something. Maybe if you have to, you can make a trade before the trade deadline. I don't think you're going to get a Kamara or anything like that. But you may be able to find something, or maybe you find Elijah Mitchell can do what we need him to do. Who knows? But Rashard Smith's the number one priority here. Let's talk about the receivers for just a little bit, and we'll lump the tight ends with that. And then we'll move over to the defense, because the defense played a pretty good game. I would say if I graded the whole defense, man, they were a B+ or an A-, right in that wheelhouse. But so I got a lot to talk about there. But talk about receivers. I think the guy who stole the show was Tyquan Thornton. There's no doubt about that. The Chiefs did use Noah Gray more. I think we've seen more signs that Kelsey looks to be aging a little bit. Maybe Mahomes has lost a little confidence in him. And so where's your head at with the receiving core right now and the playmakers?
Right, so this one's a tough one to talk about at the moment because you're missing two of your biggest guys, right? We all know that Rashee Rice is out until after week 6 because of the suspension. Yeah. And then, of course, Xavier Worthy's supposed to get back a little quicker than we all imagined, but he did not play this game. According to Andy Reid in his presser yesterday, he kind of just said it was his personal decision, and the doctors, if he was ready to go, they were going to let him play, but him and the doctors kind of consulted. He wasn't feeling up to it. They just didn't do it, right? So that is what it is.
Nick Wright claims he's got a source that says Worthy will be back this week. So if that's credible, if not, Nick Wright.
Even if he's right about that, no pun intended, I think that's just fairly easy to see coming.
Right. It feels like it should be this week.
Yeah. So, and then of course you talked about Jalen Royals earlier, who's yet to see the field. So maybe we see him in the mix back next week, but let's just talk about this in particular game. Obviously Tyquan Thornton was the bright spot. Everyone knows that. Tyquan Thornton has really showed why he was a second-round draft pick. He's really starting to show that maybe he just ended up in a really bad situation. And that's what we were hoping for when we stashed him onto the practice squad last season. And it's kind of working out that way because there's two things I really want to talk about here. Maybe three. Let's go ahead and make it three. I think that Tyquan Thornton gets better separation than just about anybody else on the football field. We're starting to see that. This guy runs a 4.2. He's very quick, and he looks like he's pretty savvy in his route running. So he's getting some separation. Number two, even if he doesn't get separation, he showed us that he's willing to go up and get the football. He's winning a lot of his contested catches. We saw that last night on that second attempt at the same play. Like, he made a fantastic catch with the DB draped all over him. So he can do those things. And then third, and the most important, is the fact that him and Mahomes look like they have pretty good chemistry. And we've kind of seen that since the offseason. That's why there was so much hype on Tyquan Thornton, because everybody was seeing that connection with Patrick Mahomes grow and grow and grow. And now we're seeing it in the season. We're seeing the fruits of it. I think that's a real thing. So when we start looking at the rest of the wide receiver room, I think Juju did what Juju is here for. All offseason, we talked about, will Juju make this team? Absolutely. He's the vet. He's the one that has to step up when he has to. He's the one that has to do some of the dirty work. That's what Juju did all night last night, and he made some really good plays. He made some things happen when we needed it. He was kind of a little security blanket for Patrick Mahomes at times. Now, let's move over to Travis Kelce, because you mentioned Travis Kelce. Travis does look like he's declining a bit. And I don't know if it's because he can't physically do it, because I don't think that's it. I feel like Travis is just as physically capable as he was a year or two ago. But something's just off mentally there. It looks like him and Mahomes are not on the same page like they usually are. something's just a little bit off. And sometimes it looks like effort. And I wonder if that's why Big Red got in his ass on the sideline. They won't come out and say what that was. Of course, they brought it up in his presser, and Andy was just like, yeah, just something that has to happen. That was good. We need that fire. We need that fire. But I think the underlying cause there is probably Travis being lazy on a route, Travis missing blocks, Travis refusing to block, just little things like that. I think Andy got fed up, and he gave it to Kelsey. And also, Kelsey's fiery himself, so that's why you saw that exchange.
I'm glad Big Red did that. We say that. Big Red's he's too lackadaisical sometimes. I'm glad he got in his face. He owed him a chest bump from the Super Bowl anyway.
He did.
So there you go. 1-1. Who's going to deliver the next chest bump? That is the big story of the season. Is it going to be Kelsey? Is there going to be somebody swoop in out of nowhere and give a triple chest bump?
Like, can I just mention
maybe
something
they bump both of them.
Can I just mention something real quick? I didn't even mention Hollywood Brown, and I think that is kind of an indicator of how his game's going so far. Like, he had a pretty good game a couple weeks ago. I think it was 9 receptions for 100 yards or 10 for 99, something like that.
Right.
Last week he had a few receptions here and there. This week he contributed by that PI way down the field because he's working after the play, trying to get into that mode of just playing that backyard football with Mahomes. But for the most part, he's pretty freaking quiet, and I feel like we could definitely use him better than we are. I don't know how. I don't know what he has to do on his end. I don't know what the play calling has to do on the other end, Mike, but I do feel like Hollywood is kind of underwhelming.
Yeah, it feels that way. But I'll say this. I think Hollywood's just playing big time out of position. I think with Rashee Rice out, he was playing out of position. And then when Worthy got injured, now he's really playing out of position. So I think there's maybe a learning thing there. And maybe once everybody gets back, this helps Hollywood because it expands his routes. It expands his knowledge of the playbook, expands all the positions he has to play. And look, Thornton, I'll touch on him briefly. He should have had a bigger night. Mahomes missed him on one ball. I want to say that was probably Mahomes' worst throw of the night if you take away the Kelsey one. Where he just missed him on the dump. But other than that, man, I thought that Tyquan Thornton is just a guy that looks like Mahomes has been able to rely on a little bit. And that's going to be big going forward because I believe Mahomes' trust right now, Xavier Worthy, a lot. So when he comes back, Worthy's there now for trust. Tyquan's there for some trust. I think the Chiefs, what they need to start doing with Kelsey in regards to that situation is you need to get Kelsey going early and you need to get him involved earlier, I believe. I believe if you get him focused on the first few plays in the game, get 1 or 2 catches under his belt, maybe within the first 15, I think that keeps Kelsey engaged. And I think if Kelsey's getting fed with the rock, I think if Kelsey's at least getting looks, that keeps him more engaged in the run game as well. Now, it maybe shouldn't be that way because he's a veteran, and I don't think it's always that way, but I feel like sometimes Kelsey feels like maybe he's getting lost in the sauce. And I think that he hears all the chirping that he's getting old and can't do it. And so I think he's putting more pressure on himself. It's almost Kelsey's version of pressing. And so I believe there's that going along with it. But I do think, you seen it a little bit last night. We called for it. We thought Noah Gray should be implemented a little bit more, and he was. I would like to see Noah Gray continue to be implemented more. Even if that means Kelsey snaps comes down a little bit, that can only be a positive. When we get to the playoff time, a more refreshed, a more healthy Travis Kelce is what you want. Because that's what we're playing for. So let's move along to the defensive side of the football, Steve. We read something today that was just last week. It was like a stat where Spags, played cover 0 and just had an all-out blitz on like 70% of the balls, on the pass plays, and it was insane. This week he comes out and goes even crazier. Per Next Gen Stats, the Chiefs featured split safeties on 78.9%. So basically 80% of the drop back. So when Russell Wilson went to drop back to throw 8 out of 10 times, the Chiefs dropped into a split safety set, the highest rate by any team this season. The unit generated 41.4% pressure rate and held Russ to 0 for 5 with an interception on deep passes in split safety coverage, Steve. And a lot of people might be asking, what's split safety coverage? And I'll give you just a little outline here, and then Steve can expand on it if he wants to or whatever we want to do. But basically, is you have 2 safeties, 2 sides of the field, and one side and one safety will run a coverage, say cover 4, cover 2, and the other side we'll do something totally different. So you could be running cover 4 on one side. You can run man on the other. It allows a linebacker to now be like, hey, if they're going to run, we got a linebacker in the box. We're going to play the run. If they were to pass, the linebacker can now drop back and play zone. So it's a confusing defense. And we were talking before we went on air, Steve, and then I'll hand it off to you. Russell Wilson is a elite QB in this league. He was at one point. We thought he was a Hall of Famer at one point. This dude can read defenses. And if you can confuse Russell Wilson with this, might we see this going forward against guys like Bo Nix and younger guys like that? And this could wreak havoc. Spags may have just found something else here he can work with.
Absolutely. And not just confusing the offense, but it also just makes you more versatile in defense. Because like Mike was saying, that split safety set, it's basically where you have two halves of the football field. You got one half doing one thing, one half doing the other. I think you mentioned one side could be in cover 2, cover 4, and then most commonly opposite of that, it's like a cover 6, something. They just do different things, right? And then one of the things that I noticed last night, Mike, and I mentioned it to you before the thing, but I think they used robber quite a bit, which is a part of that split safety set where you have one safety that likes to rotate down and what they call rob or cheat into the middle of the field. That way they can intercept those short to intermediate routes, right? Crossing the field there. I think we noticed that last night when Russ underthrew quite a bit, there was always someone in the vicinity of the ball, correct? And I think that's attributed to that. It also allows an extra defender to get into the box and help against the run, which should help with that. The short passing game. All of it, man. It's just a really cool concept, right? And I think it's something that the defense needed. We've talked about the safety room maybe being just a little bit weak this year after the loss of Justin Reed. I really thought the safeties had their best game yesterday, and I'm really going to kind of attribute it to that. I think maybe the way this team is set up personnel-wise, this might be what you need to do. Brian Cook, I thought, played a pretty good game last night. He missed that interception there and almost broke his neck, but I think he played a pretty solid game. Jaden Hicks played a solid game. And like you said, it keeps the offense on their toes. That allows you to look at the offensive package and see what they're about to do, and you can adjust. And when you're adjusting, you're not just adjusting your entire defense. You're maybe just adjusting one half of the field. So absolutely, a lot of those younger quarterbacks are going to come in and have trouble with that. So I absolutely love it. It's right in Spagnuolo's wheelhouse of always being confusing and always keeping people on their toes. So I think that was a big reason why the defense looked pretty good last night.
Yeah, that was a brilliant wrinkle by Spags. You didn't even mention Christian Roland Wallace. Hell of a play by Christian Roland Wallace.
He's awesome,
and then,
bro.
I think it was one of the split safety sets where Russ moonballed up thinking that he was going to have a one-on-one coverage or whatever he thought. I thought maybe Jalen Watson was going to sit down in the zone, and he moonballed it, and Jalen Watson stayed in man-to-man coverage with no safety up over the top and turned around and picks that in the end zone. And look, it was nice. And you mentioned the concept of a robber. Look, bringing a safety down in the box is the Chiefs' bread and butter. That's what Justin Reed, that's what Honey Badger did.
Of course.
That's what, Dan Sorensen could do that. And so we needed a lot of that from Hicks. We needed a lot of that from him, and we needed a lot of that from maybe Chamari Connor. That's another position he is really good at, more than likely, is to play that robber position. Right. So I like this. I think it's good. It also frees up your linebacker. And I think now what it did do is it caused the repercussions for this, because Isaac Newton, you gotta have an equal and opposite reaction. That was a great thing, but the opposite reaction that kind of hurts a little bit is it didn't allow Jeffrey Bossa to get many snaps. And you would think, though, with Bossa's amazing athletic ability and his previous safety experience, that he could maybe play that robber right there, bringing that extra guy in for the run game. And this is also a way that maybe Spags found a wrinkle to prevent this third down. The Chiefs allowed 1 third down conversion out of 10 last night. And what did this do? The robber put an extra guy in the middle of the field, where the Chiefs are notoriously giving these things up on linebackers.
110%. And another thing,
so Spags may have found something there.
Absolutely. Another thing you have to consider, like you said, it's a bit confusing for certain quarterbacks. Someone that with Russell Wilson's experience probably picked up on it fairly quickly, but that doesn't mean he's going to be able to beat it, right? But a lot of these young guys are going to see it. When you initially see this defense, it's going to look like a cover 2. It's straight up going to look like a cover 2.
Absolutely.
And then you have the strong safety rotate down, and that's where they take care of that middle of the field. They also can be the extra run defense in the run box and all that good stuff, man. So I just think it's just a perfect way to utilize a young team. Keep it interesting, I suppose, and also keep it difficult for the offenses, man. I just think it's a really good idea.
Right.
And now I will say this, the guys that ended up playing that deep safety role, they're responsible for the whole deep half of the field, right?
Yeah.
So that defense, it does come with its risks. If you can get in behind that, it can get blown up pretty quickly. And they had the offense to do that with Wan'Dale Robinson and with
Neighbors.
Malik Neighbors. Those are guys that are literally guys that get over the top of a defense. That's what they do. But our corners played such a good game. Shout out Trent McDuffie for really locking down Malik Neighbors. That was awesome to see. And also those safeties that have to cover that back half of the field. They did an excellent job, man.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Jalen Watson done really well too. And another guy, Noah Williams, limited snaps, but his snaps did go up. Here's what I'm afraid of with Noah Williams. This is what I'm afraid of, Steve. Tell me I'm crazy.
You're crazy.
I'm afraid that Noah Williams is going to get 19 snaps this week and maybe next week 20, 25, and we fall in love with him. And then there's a certain Najee Johnson going to come off IR and take off his snaps. No. I swear I will lose. Look, hey, look at me. Spags, if you hear me right now, if you watch one thing, Najee Johnson does not get Noah Williams snaps when he comes back. You make him earn it.
Dude.
That's what I got to say about it.
So Noah Williams only played 8 snaps last night. It was a top-rated PFF cornerback in coverage. The kid can play. Now he's going to come with some penalties because that's the style he plays, a la L'Jarius Sneed, right? We dealt with L'Jarius Sneed being the top penalized person in the entire NFL because he shut people down. He was physical. And that's what Noah Williams brings to the table. You saw it last night. You saw him take that little flag on that ticky-tacky face mask, but that was him imposing his will on the line of scrimmage the same way L'Jarius Sneed did that we loved him for. The way that he took down Tyreek Hill and made his life a living hell. That's the kind of play that you're going to see from Noah Williams. I'm excited to see him get more and more snaps, man, but I will also say that Jalen Watson played a damn good game last night.
Yeah.
He really stepped it up because there for a minute we were like, is he really just a 7th round draft pick that maybe was playing out of his gourd a little bit? No, he's good. And I think that when you can get Christian Fulton back, if you can get that guy to ever be on a football field, I think we'd have a pretty well-rounded cornerback room there. I'm excited at what this could be. But, Mike, all that is hinging on one thing. We've got to get pressure on the QB.
Pass rush, man. You got to do it. Look, let me touch on linebackers for just 1 second because we'll talk about the defensive line. But that split safety allowed our linebackers, I think, to play free last night. I think you saw Nick Bolton get his ass trucked once, but then it woke him up and he played a heck of a game, in my opinion. And I seen Leo a few times get on the line and was able to rush the passer. I like that. So I thought our linebackers played a decent game last night. So let's get into the defensive line. Steve, there's one guy that he went just crazy last night, and that was George Karlaftis. Like, he earned his money last night. Like, he had 7, 8, 9 pressures. He had a QB sack. He was hitting Russell Wilson. He was in his face. He had 3 or 4 stops behind the line of scrimmage in the run game. He looked good. Okay, Chris Jones, he should have probably won more one-on-one matchups, but he did get after the quarterback. He did create some pressures. Those two
played
the
same amount
solidly.
of pressures as George Karlaftis, actually. They both had 7.
So those two did get after the QB. I would love to see him convert more. But, Russ is an elusive kind of guy, even in his old age.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the other guys. The one I wanted to talk about is Omar Norman-Lott, man, because I feel like Omar Norman-Lott is being – I feel like people are sleeping on him, Steve. And we kind of said this.
Been.
Right. Omar Norman-Lott is a guy to go get the quarterback, right? He is that. So he got a sack in his first game. He almost had another one last night, and he kind of went by Russ or whatever.
Yeah.
But, dude, they're not putting him on any of these charts. They're not doing all this stuff. But he's being effective. I read a stat somewhere. I want to say it was Arrowhead Live on X. It could be wrong. I don't know. I want to give him credit, but I just can't remember off the top of my head. But if I find it, I'll throw it up. But they said something like with just one pass rush attempt, if you take all that down, so that puts like 170 defensive tackles, that if you do that, Omar Norman-Lott in his limited attempts has like a 16% pass rush win rate. and he is number one in all the NFL through 3 weeks, which is incredible because
football. Why did we
he
like
was
him coming out
number
of college?
one. He had a 19% win rate, and we kept saying that he is a guy to not bulk up and stop the run, even though I think he's capable of stopping the run. But he's a guy to unleash on that quarterback. And Steve, I think he done a pretty good job. Ashton Gillotte got a lot of snaps, and he got after the QB. I think he had a QB hit and a pressure, but he kind of got faded a little bit. Now, he did block a kick with his head, so props to Ashton Gillotte, baby. But, Steve, the one guy or two or three guys on this defensive line that are just destroying me right now is Derek Nottie, the one we traded for, and Charles Omenihu, the guy who talks the hugest game ever and just cannot back it up.
That's correct. Absolutely. I want to start on Omar Norman Lott a little bit myself. 14 pass rushing snaps last night, 5 QB pressures, 5 hurries. I mean, that you can't argue with that, man.
If that doesn't get you just horned, get the blood flowing to the wiener, I don't know what does.
I'm not a mathematician, but I think that's a little bit over a third of the time he's getting after the damn quarterback. And that's what we want. Ashton Gillotte, he's got his limitations, man. He's a little bit smaller, gets washed out in the run game, stuff like that. But he's got that motor, and he's got the will to get better, and I think he will continue to get better, and he will end up being a piece. I think so.
Not worried about Ashton Gillotte, man.
Not worried about him a bit. What I'm worried about is the guys you brought up. Derek Nottie is not good. He's not a good football player. Decent, I guess we could be nice and say he's decent. They brought him back to help in the run game because they weren't planning on keeping Mike Pennell. Bad decision. We wasted draft capital and have a worse player at defending the run. Not a good decision there by Brett Veach. Not sure what the reasoning was behind that. And I think we've seen so far why it was a bad decision. Derek Nottie's not been good in any game so far. He just hasn't. I'm sorry. I like the guy. Think he's great. Just not all that good at football. It is what it is. Charles Omenihu. Like you said, he talks a big game. That's what he spends a lot of his time doing, is getting on X, social media, and talking about how great he is, how everybody needs to watch, that he deserves the highest contract ever to a defensive end. He's so good, but he don't ever do anything. He doesn't. Now, his first season with the Chiefs, he served a 4 or 6 game suspension. I can't remember. And after that, in a short season, he played very well. And we were like, look, we found a guy that might fit this Spags defense perfectly because he killed it in a short amount of time. He's yet to follow that up. Absolutely yet to follow that. He has disappeared ever since. Last night, I think the most that I noticed that Charles Omenihu was on a football field was when he almost got injured. That was about it. He gets stood up almost every play. He's not creating any pressure. He's not doing much of anything. And I think for the piece that people thought he was going to be, it is a huge disappointment, and it's time to look past that because why even give this guy snaps at this point? There's no point in it to me. He's not getting anything done. I'd rather get Ashton Gillotte out there a little bit more often, even if he's not effective, because neither's Omenihu, and at least we'd be getting some experience for Ashton Gillotte, who I think will continue to get better and better each week.
And it's very wild that you would have looked at this season and said that you think at this point, again, he's injured, but it's wild to think that you would take Mike Dana out there on most snaps over Charles Omenihu because it feels like Omenihu should have been the more dynamic player, the longer arm, the more freak athlete. But it feels like Dana puts more effort in or something, man.
Now, could he be in a funk right now and snap out of it? Absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
That's a possibility. But I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen any signs of it. So I kind of have to stay where you're at, man. I'd much rather have Mike Dana on the football field. And Mike Dana, for all intents and purposes, is pretty mid. I think he's a good football player, but he's nothing exciting. He's nothing spectacular unless you're playing the Chargers, and then he normally unleashes the beast. But yeah, man, I think the defensive line as a whole, they looked a lot better last night than they had in a long time. They really did.
Yeah.
I think that they are going to continue to get better because you got some young pieces there. And I do think eventually they're going to have to look at Charles Omenihu and be like, hey, produce or be on the sideline. It's one of the two. So I think that we will see this defensive line get better. I don't think they're going to add any pieces. Last year, they kept throwing stuff at the wall. Nothing stuck. They got Cam Thomas. He never seen the football field. You got Joshua Shea, who could not get on the football field, didn't produce. Some things just don't work. You saw him go to Philly this season. He's been one of the best pass rushers in the league. But we couldn't even use him. So, I mean, I don't think going and getting another piece is going to be the answer at defensive line. But I do think that these guys are going to have to step it up because it's all about pressuring that quarterback, bro.
Yeah, for sure. I think we won the battle in the trenches yesterday enough to get that, and then our secondary produced some big, much-needed turnovers. We finally won the turnover battle. Look, the game was ugly. It wasn't great, but I think that pretty much puts a bow on that entire game. Like, we're probably done talking about the Giants from this point forward. We're going to start talking about the Ravens. And so if you want to hear that, get over to YouTube, youtube.com/allchiefedup. Subscribe to that. We're going to release 2, 3, 4 more videos and have a couple live streams this week. Get together with all of you guys, talk about the Ravens matchup going forward. It's a big one, man. Yeah. If the Ravens drop to the Lions, which we're recording right now, so we don't know what this is going to be, but if they drop tonight, we're both at 1-3, which is our 1-2, which is wild. So we're fighting for that 2-2 or 1-3, and so it's crazy. But yeah, if you're on anything other than YouTube right now, go ahead and leave us a 5-star review, no matter where you're at, Spotify, Apple, wherever. Do that. Let people know where to hear good Chiefs content. If you're on YouTube, hit the like button. They got this new button now, Steve, called Hype. Hype it up. I don't know what it is, but it sounds young and hip. We want to be hip, so hype it up.
You got to be hip to the hype.
Yeah.
Hip, hip, hop it. Don't stop.
Yeah. Go hip it, hype it, do something. Do that. Subscribe if you haven't already. And that's going to wrap it up for today. We appreciate you guys listening, and we'll be back with more content later in the week. Share this video with a friend that loves the Chiefs and likes to talk about just some kick-ass Chiefs football with 2 kick-ass brothers.
Let's do it. Let's go. Go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs.